Hi, good morning everyone. Today I am at Radnor Wood, just outside the back of Fordingbridge. It's my local wood, and as you can see, the bluebells are out in full bloom. And yeah, I just come down here to see if I can get any little captures, take some little photos before I go away on my big trip. And hopefully I'll also give you some tips on how to photograph bluebells, or how I photograph bluebells. And so yeah, let's get on. So I haven't walked very far and I've come across this area of mossy logs, and there's some logs that have been chopped down up there. So I'm going to see if I can find a composition here. And I think for me here is just do not try to get the sky in, and try and keep it as tight as possible with the background, so you don't get too much clutter in. I mean, you can see there's a fallen I don't know what it is, it's ivy or something that climbs up the trees. There's some of that there. I'm freehanding this, I'm not using a tripod. I'm going to see if I can get a few little quick snaps here. I can see a lovely one down there. You can see how dense it is here, and I'll show you how I get that. There is a particular way. So I'm going to start here and try and work in this little foreground. I have got a fence here, and I'm going to totally respect the, you know, that is private land, and I'm just going to stand in this public footpath area and see if I can get the shots that I need from here. Yeah, I'll try and walk you through this shot as I'm taking it, and hopefully you'll have something to take away from it. Okay, just going to put you down. So one of the things I do like here is there's this mossy log, and I can shoot through the fence, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. And I've got 3 or 4 bluebells. I've got 3 or 4 bluebells just sitting in the foreground here. And I'm going to see if I can isolate them with a tight aperture. So I'm using f1.6 here, but it does actually go down to 1.4. I mean, you can even use 1.4. I'm using this in aperture priority mode, so I'm just trying to concentrate on my composition. One of the things I find with bluebells, stuff like that, if you're trying to work on your composition and make that your primary thing, then aperture mode should be good enough. Just keep your eye on the histogram, because you might have to use exposure compensation to bring it back a bit, and slightly underexposed and bring it back in Lightroom. Now, I would rather underexpose and retain the highlights than completely have a blowout on, particularly the bluebells. If they go white on the edges, then you kind of ruined your shot a little bit. There's no recovery from that. So it's always good to slightly underexpose if you have to, because the sun is going to be coming through the trees and you're going to get your bright spots. And unless you get up really, really early, which I haven't today, I got up quite late. In fact, what time is it? I think it's yeah, it's about 9:30. So yeah. So what I'm looking for here is I've got a soft light coming through the trees onto this mossy log, and it's lighting up the bluebells in the foreground. It's not very harsh as some of the light is out here. So if I can just isolate them and then take the shot. I'm trying not to get too much else in the background. This might be a square crop. I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure what I want to do. I could make this really interesting and make a foreground bluebell go a little bit out of focus, and it just adds a bit more interest into it. So it sort of like frames it a little bit, if you like. Yeah, that should do it. I don't have to worry about blowouts because I'm using aperture priority mode. I would go full manual, and I have done in the past, but sometimes aperture just comes into its own. I switched the lens up. I'm now on the 55 to 200mm. Obviously this is the Fujifilm, I haven't told you that yet, have I? Fujifilm X-T1, quite an old camera, but still a good camera. 16 megapixel, quite happy with it. I've had no reason to change, and I've also gone inside it to fix it because I had some problems with the knobs on the top where they weren't selecting the right thing and they were skittishing all over all the settings. So I plucked up the courage and went in it because I saw that to get one second hand is about 200 quid. I was quite happy to part with that to get another one because these are bloody good cameras. All the Fujifilm range are pretty good cameras. So here I'm using a zoom, and now the reason why I'm going for the zoom here is because I want to single out and zoom in on the more dense areas of the bluebells. So if you look at a distance, so if you look in the foreground for example, you can see the gaps in between, there's a lot of green. If you look towards the horizon more, a little bit further afield, you can see the bluebells look more dense and there's a lot less green showing. So a really simple composition here, and just single out some trees. Now I like to look for space between the tree trunks because that just makes it easier on the eye. If you start to overlap things, it becomes a bit confusing. So we're just going to look for some separation between the tree trunks. Hopefully they're all leaning in the same direction, or they're leaning into the middle of the image, not out of the image, because you're drawing people away, you want to draw people in. So I'm just going to have a little walk around here and see if I can take some shots. I'm only going to do it handheld. If I need a tripod, I'll switch over. I've got good optical stabilisation in these lenses, so I'm quite happy to handhold it. It's not dark, it's quite light here. So yeah, I'm just going to walk around and see what I can get. Remember to move around because it only takes a little bit of movement to make or break a shot. So yeah, if you just move ever so slightly, you might be overlapping a tree. If you reveal something behind that you don't want to see behind, you'll see there's a lot of those pheasant feeding containers around in places, sometimes in bluebell woods. If they're private land, it might be something to do with hunting. I also look for things to single out. So if there's something unusual within the bluebells, in this instance I've got a little bit of ivy growing up the side of a birch tree. Birch trees and bluebells do, it's just amazing, especially when the ground is managed quite well and you just get an abundance of bluebells on the base, on the undergrowth. Really nice. And you only get it once a year, so definitely take advantage of it. Get yourself some smidge spray because I am being bitten all in my scalp, and I can feel them. Ugh. So I'm just going to get this shot and then I'm going to move on because I'm not too keen on being bitten. So yeah, that was tip number 1. Don't be afraid to use your zoom lens when taking pictures of bluebells. It's very good for zooming into quite a distance into the dense areas of the bluebell. and make it look more thicker than it really is in the foreground. Okay, moving on. Am I actually going uphill again? Tip number 2, get to the location early or a little bit later in the day. And there's a couple of reasons for this. One is the light is a lot more soft, and secondly, there's less likely to be a breeze or wind the first couple of hours at the start of a day, and at the end of the day the wind tends to drop off a little bit. So those are the good times to come down. If you come down midday, you're going to get some real hot spots in the bluebells, so they're going to be very difficult to shoot during the day. So yeah, that's tip number 2. I'm just going to show you this whole zoom thing. So as you can see, I am stood in the middle of these leaves here. There's not much going on in the foreground, and if you look over there, you can see it looks dense all along that line there. So this is the bit I'm interested in, and if you look through here, my zoom, I've isolated out a single tree in this little area here, and I've got a little bit of framing going on. There's no real burn spots on the trees here, so I'm quite happy with that. And yeah, I'm just going to take that shot. I'm on aperture f11, timer, take the shot. And again, I'm on aperture mode, so don't have to keep my eye on the shutter speed or anything, which is really good because there's just no wind. I haven't got to fully control this, and I encourage you all to switch between modes on the camera and learn a little bit from each one. I mostly sit on my manual, so I've got full control. I believe you can be a bit more creative with it, but some of these tools already built into these modern cameras are pretty good, and I think you should use them. Like the focus is pretty good. I see a lot of people manual focusing. I do sometimes when the focus struggles to find something, but if the focus is that good in your camera, you should use it, right? So yeah, just concentrate on your composition, not so much what the camera's doing. Lovely, so I'll show you that one on the screen, and you'll see what I mean about looking for dense areas and zooming in on them. That's probably taken me a bit too long to discover that. For some reason at the start of when I was taking photos of bluebells, I just went in with a wide angle because I wanted to get it all in, and that's not the trick. That's not the trick at all. Wide angles are good if you can get something big in the foreground, but you don't want to get the sky. I don't think wide angle works particularly well in a woodland. You really don't want to get that sky in. I think that ruins woodland shots. So yeah, let's move on to another tip. Number 3, so isolation. You need to isolate particular things in your shot. Interesting things, like for example, I found this white bluebell in amongst the actual bluebells, so that adds interest. If you find a bit of ivy growing up a tree, a bit like that there, then you might have some bluebells around the chunk of it. that adds interest too. If you get a bit of fern growing up against a tree, that's quite interesting, and you just isolate it out amongst the bluebells. So try not to get too hung up on the bluebells themselves. Look for unusual things amongst the bluebells and try to take shots of them too, because they're equally as interesting as well. A very popular thing that you see with bluebell shots are low hanging branches on the birch trees. They go out and you get a nice fresh green foliage, because this is spring, so you get fresh leaves growing on these birch trees. And if you can get a really low one and have the bluebells in the background of that branch, that just adds interest as well. But yeah, look for isolate interesting things going on amongst the bluebells, or even if you really have to, look for bluebell on its own in the middle of nowhere, because that's quite unusual as well, because they're normally in clumps with the others. But if you see one on its own up against a tree, take a shot of it. I'm just going to show you this. Look at this. I've got a tripod on full extent. Don't really like using this because stability is lessened, if you like, when it's on that fine neck where you've got the 3 legs. It's quite sturdy. But yeah, I just want to show you this shot. So this is how much a composition can make a difference, or a tiny bit of zoom even more so. So if you're looking at this here, this shot on the back of the camera, there we go. So I'm showing you that there. Now this is quite nice because I do have it's got a sensor on the back of the eyepiece, so it can tell when I'm looking through that or not. So this tree here and this one here are making a good frame, but you can see around them. If I zoom just ever so slightly, just to start getting rid of those backgrounds on either side of those trees, now I've got a composition that's framed, and it's allowing your eyes to get drawn into the centre of the picture rather than get lost around the back of the sides of the tree. So I'm going to take that shot. Just going to quickly change that to 2-second timer, and bang, 1, 2, 3, bop, there's the shot. The sun's getting a bit harsh now, so I think I'm going to call it a day. I hope my tips have helped you with the bluebells, and you can grab your camera, still get out. The bluebells are probably going to be here for another week, I hope. So grab your camera, get out there while you can. Next week I'll be uploading my video for the kayaking, the packing, what camera I'm taking, put it in the bag and stuff like that. I'm doing something a bit special with the camera, putting it in a 3D printed case, so I'll show you that as well. And yeah, join me next time on my video when I'll be packing my boat. And until then, give me a like, subscribe if you haven't, and leave a comment, don't be afraid, I will get back to you. And until next time, bye.